Raz hit. You locked in with the star treatment. Follow movement at the Star Treat DC. Again. That's at the Star Treat DC. Stay royal. Elite Nation. Raz hit. Raz hit. Raz hit. Raz hit. Raz hit.
Peep the palm, see the digits in the glass. Legacy on the knuckles, we don't worry about the past. 5 stars on the chest, glitched in the design. DC to the world, yeah, we crossing every line. God's child on the mic, yeah, we crossing every line. God's child on the mic, turning coal into ice. God's child on the mic, turning coal into ice. Giving Cowboys Nation a whole new slice of life. No cap in the boost, just the truth in the facts. No cap in the boost, just the truth in the facts. Elite takes on the table, no holding anything back. Get that real star treatment, May 20th if we lock in. 12 p.m. on the clock, the winning streak begins. Stay hit, stay connected, join the broadcast on the link. We the elite of the nation, faster than you can blink. The Star Treat DC, yeah, that's the handle, that's the crew. Bringing 5 rings of proof and a vision that's brand new. Navy blue and the gold, yeah, that's the color of the blood. From the turf to the booth, we rising up out the mud. Iced out pendant swinging, shining like the sun. May 29th at 12, yeah, the work has just begun. Exclusive coverage, top tier minds in the room. Clearing out the competition, hear the rumble and the boom. Elite Dallas Cowboys, yeah, the name says it all. When you dealing with the stars, you never gonna fall. Get that real star treatment, May 20th if we lock in. 12 p.m. on the clock, the winning streak begins. Stay hit, stay connected, join the broadcast on the link. We the elite of the nation, faster than you can blink. The Star Treat DC, yeah, that's the handle, that's the crew. Bringing 5 rings of proof and a vision that's brand new. 5 rings, 1 show, the elite. You heard the stats, you know the history. Now witness the future. Set your reminders, we waiting on you. Get that real star treatment, May 20th if we lock in. 12 p.m. on the clock, the winning streak begins. Stay hip, stay connected, join the broadcast on the link. We the elite of the nation, faster than you can blink. The Star Treat DC, yeah, that's the handle, that's the crew. Bringing 5 rings of proof and a vision that's brand new. Hey, the Star Treat DC, we out. May 29th, don't be late.
There we go. Right. All right, RJ. I had the mic on, so you probably couldn't hear me, but for folks out there, I want to welcome you to another episode of Star Treatment, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you the most depth coverage for the Dallas Cowboys. Today, we got a special guest on. So this is a special show. Joining us, no other than RJ Ochoa, managing editor of the Blog and the Boys and one of the most prominent voices for the Cowboys media. We're doing a deep dive on the 2026 season outlook, analyzing the front office decisions, breaking down coordinators, and who better to talk to us about that on the show today than RJ itself. So buckle up, Cowboy fans and Cowboys Nation and Elite Nation, because this is your time. This is Star Treatment, and we're refreshed and happy to have my man RJ on. RJ, introduce yourself, but first, before you do all that, I kind of wanted to get your take and some of the things that, because you're real tapped in, man, and I've been a fan of yours, watching some of your interviews and some of your things that you're doing on SB Nation and Blogging the Boys, man. Talk about the outlook and how you feeling, because I've been saying this for a year and a half that the Cowboys been moving differently. And folks, I believe Jerry really listening to not only the fan base, but you being somebody in the media that's been critical of some things and honestly critical of them. Tell me how you feel about just everything as far as offseason, the trades, the draft. Talk to the people and let them know.
Yeah, well, excuse me. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm willing to believe that Jerry is listening to the fans. I would love to believe that, right? I would love to let my guard down and believe that our thoughts and opinions and points of criticism have been heard and digested, and that's what's led to some of these changes. Because I agree with you that they're clearly operating in a different way. Not to say that watch out, here they come, they're moving differently, but objectively they are acting differently than they have at least over the last 2 seasons. And my criticism personally, the bulk of it has come over the last 2 years, the 2024 and 2025 off seasons and seasons. I think that you can make a very strong argument that the most recent playoff loss, the most recent one to the Packers, obviously, is the worst in the Jerry Jones era. It wasn't an NFC Championship game, it wasn't a Super Bowl, but that loss fractured the fan base in a very different way. We've obviously experienced some tough losses. Dez caught it 3rd and 20, but the way that game happened, it just felt like the offseason that followed it, the 2024 offseason, they sent Mike McCarthy into the contract year. That was never going to work out. Dan Quinn left. Obviously, they brought in a family friend in Mike Zimmer. I was very critical of that, and it did wind up working out, but obviously the defense was successful, but Jerry obviously said they were going to be all in, and they know what that kind of comment can do to the fan base and the type of reaction it can generate. And then they did nothing. I mean, they did absolutely nothing. And it just felt like for 2 years, they were as toxic as they possibly could be. And I'm so fortunate. I'm inordinately blessed to get to do what I do for a living. I basically just get to be a professional fan. And it was not fun. I mean, I love my job and I never have a bad day, at it, but the last 2 years have not been fun. Something that is supposed to be fun in our lives has just really been a chore. It's just, okay, it's Sunday. You watch the games and you do your typical routines because that's the way life is. And so I don't know if they woke up this offseason. I don't know. I would love to believe that. But I don't know if Brian Schottenheimer convinced them of something. I don't know if the players convinced them of something. I don't know what it was. But being in on Max Crosby, even though they didn't pull that off and all that stuff happened, was an improvement. Trading for Rashawn Gary was an improvement. Getting the Javonte Williams deal done when they did was an improvement. The fact that we're sitting here before July and Brandon Aubrey has a long-term extension, the George Pickens situation has been resolved. Those things represent some serious growth from how they handle this franchise. They got very lucky in other ways. They got very lucky that Caleb Downs fell as far as he did, that they could trade up and they found a partner to be able to make that happen. Obviously, the hiring of Christian Parker and signing over power and control and autonomy to him in the way that they have. It really has been a perfect offseason. And I recognize those are famous last words, but if this season fails the way that most of them obviously do, it will not be because they acted like children, like has been the case in the past. It will just fail because winning the Super Bowl is very hard to do. And you can try very hard and not do that. And so I will not criticize them at the end of the season if it doesn't work out for going about it the wrong way. It will suck, obviously, but we have 30 years of experience in terms of dealing with that, unfortunately.
Okay, let's take what you said in context, because one thing I've been doing is I've been critical of them too. I normally speak very honest about them, and I appreciate you for that, because you've always done that. And you've done it in a professional way. There's some what I've always said about doing what I do is one, I had another platform where I would just talk about all the sports and stuff like that. And then when it gets to the NFL part of it, maybe not as much last year, but the year before for sure, and the year before that, it wasn't fun, man. It was almost like a lot of times when I would do the podcast, I would kind of get to the Cowboy part of it or the NFL part of it, and it just wasn't fun talking about the games and stuff. And as Cowboys fans, we be so invested in the season and maybe not so much in to the off season, because I believe a lot of times we were saying that we wanted Jerry to do this and wanted Jerry to do that. And I believe that he hasn't done everything. I do believe he's fault for a lot of things that has happened on the field. But I look at some things, and I've always said we just was doing like a retread. We go get a defensive coordinator that failed at one spot, and we bring him in, but the players don't fit whatever the scheme was. And then the speaking defenses, we know has been with the defense the last 3 years. We just had a light at the end of the tunnel as far as some of the moves made last year. I just want to know, because I've really been tapped into listening to Brian Schottenheimer, the players, even Jerry Jones. Like I've said that listening to him doing the combine, listening to him how he does his address after the combine ends, talks about the state of the Dallas Cowboys, and then I listen to Brian, I listen to Christian, who I'm very, very impressed with. I'm very impressed with him. But I listened to Shotty, and Shotty said that he had two people that if he ever got a coaching job, those two people he would want to be on his coaching staff, and one of them was Adams on offense, and the other one was Christian Parkman. He was able to do that. And then last year, I didn't feel like Shotty was a hire that was just someone that'll be a yes man for Jerry Jones. I felt like for the first time he was willing to kind of give somebody a shot that paid his dues and kind of left him alone to let him create this culture that he always talk about. And I hear the players talking about it. I just see things just a lot different. Even Darren Woodson, who has an office there, he's been doing podcasts and interviews and stuff and talking about how he just feel like he can look out on the field and just see things that ain't operating nowhere in the building the way it used to be. So that kind of goes back to what you were saying about being toxic and things like that. So I just know this is the first time that I've really felt good about being a fan. I just want to see it play out on the field and everything. What outlook on just going into training camp and then having those matchups against other teams and stuff like that. That Rams one I'm very interested in as well. But what's your take and what's your expertise on just going into training camp and stuff and getting ready for preseason? What do you want to see from the Cowboys from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, we've got about a month to go. These are the kind of last doldrums before football runs our lives for half the year, and I think that I don't know anyone who isn't over the top pleased with Christian Parker in terms of what can be understood at this point in time. And I think what I'm most interested in seeing is what his defense looks like at training camp. We have a lot of ideas, right? We understand obviously the ingredients. We've seen a few things from an OTA and minicamp perspective, but it is difficult to start to kind of assemble that picture in your mind. And so I think training camp offers that first glimpse. And it offers a glimpse as far as who's going to be utilized where, I still don't know who's going to start at corner for this team, and that's Christian Parker's specialty. I don't know. Like I feel both concerned and also not concerned about the corner position because of who Christian Parker is. It kind of feels to me like, like in a video game when you get like a certain suit or something, and it boosts your like endurance or something. You know what I'm saying? Like Christian Parker is that for the cornerback position. Like he just inherently makes the corners on whatever team he's coaching better. Not to take away from Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean or Patrick Surtain, but I'm interested to see if that hypothesis is correct at the very least. And so I think training camp offers that, and I think that over time we've seen preseason games just dilute. The preseason just hardly matters. It matters certainly for players who are trying to make the roster, trying to earn spots, trying to climb on the depth chart, things like that. But gone are the days where you had starters playing in the preseason, and now teams have sort of modified that and created their own version of it with these scrimmages, these joint practices. And so those are probably the most important days across the entire training camp and preseason period. And going up against the Los Angeles Rams, who I think many people believe are the favorite, certainly in the NFC. Can't hurt. I think it's a great Rorschach test to see where this team is at. The Saints is a good chance to revisit with Kellen Moore and whatnot, but also to go up against somebody like Jordan Tyson. I'm an Arizona State Sun Devil and see what he offers, see if these corners can ultimately go, shot for shot with them. Is somebody like Chris Olave burning Deron Bland? Because then you really have to start to panic a little bit. But it's going to be exciting, like I said, to finally start to. I feel like we've gotten all of our new clothes for school. We've gotten all of our books and our pencils and our binders and our trapper keepers or whatever they're called. And we have everything ready. Now it's time to just sit down in the classroom and start to learn knowledge and put all this together.
Okay. I'm on another platform because I've been kind of doing my rounds and stuff, just trying to get people to know, one, about me, two, just how I look at certain things. I'm always looking at all levels of the team, whether it's the offensive line, the defensive line during games, some of the things that you just alluded to, some of the corner play and things like that. This the first time I actually heard the mantra of we want to be transparent. We want to have awareness be high. We want to be able to take the things that we learn in the classroom and take it on the field and then be able to go back in the classroom. This is the first time I really heard coaching be the main thing about everything that the Cowboys are doing. And then also having players that want to be here and players that's going to be willing to wear different hats, whatever the situation, whether it be a game scheme that they trying to do, or just having folks be able to step in the roles that before you would have a player go down, and then that player that go down, you didn't have someone behind him that either had the ability to come in, the confidence to come in, or was coached up. So I'm hearing a lot about coaching, flexibility, being able to be what does Parker, he had a term for just being able to be more flexible as far as being on that field and being able to make plays off of the way you've been coached the entire way. I've never heard that being said over the way it is now. Is that the same type of is that the same feel you're getting? Coming from OTAs, Brian talked about that. That's not real football, but things that you can take away from it and improve on that as far as the players' awareness, and then everybody and then what they're trying to do as a coach and a coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there's any denying that all that sounds like exactly what you want to hear. And I want to be very, very, very clear. I'm as excited as anybody can possibly be about Christian Parker. I think, that has proven to be the correct decision over and over and over again. I think we've all just been burned by, great press conferences from different people. And so I think that, again, not to doubt it whatsoever at all. But I think now is the time where I don't think anybody is fed up with this by any stretch. I think he's been such a revelation, and I think it's been so awesome to see him have autonomy, as I mentioned. But now it's a matter of, okay, that's great. Like you've nailed the classroom part of this. Now it's time to see the performance. And I get that we all have idle hands because, again, we haven't, at the time we're speaking, we haven't even reached July yet, right? We're so anxious. We're so ready to see whether this really is going to bear itself out. But I think that, to me, I think the spirit we talked about at the beginning of toxicity and of, frankly, of dread, we didn't utilize that word, but I think there was this just kind of like sense of dread surrounding this team. I'm assuming, I'm guessing, I would imagine that seeps into the team itself. I think that everyone realizes what's happening around them, and it just makes everything heavy. It makes everything not fun, like we talked about. And so the sense I get, the read I have is that, this new energy is coming at a time where everyone is allowed to breathe, right? It's like, when you're on an airplane and you finally get out and you can stretch and you've just been trapped and you can finally start to move and go get something to eat, go use the restroom, right? Like you can start to refresh yourself after being in this metal tube that you've been in for a few hours. And so I think that has created not to say that the players may or may not have been resistant to anything happening in the past, but I think everyone is just in the right place. And I think Christian Parker was the right teacher, the right coach, the right defensive coordinator for this team where they're at now that they're starting to take themselves seriously. I think it was a perfect marriage in that sense.
808 thump. Hey, Lead Nation. If you ain't following yet, what we doing? It's the Star Treatment, where Big D's new era get the royal welcome. Hit that follow button at the Star Treat DC. THE Star Treat DC. Again, that's at the Star Treat DC. Drop a star in the comments, slide in the DMs. Tell a friend to tell a friend, we moving as a team. Godchild signing on. Stay royal. Elite Nation.
All right. Brian talked about he happy that everything kind of worked out as far as picking, signing an agreement, keeping in touch with him, keeping in touch with Zach, CeeDee Lamb. We know the relationship they have. I was worried about that because I know that, going back into the history of the Cowboys, even, you can go back as close as CeeDee Lamb contract, where you come in, you're not there at training camp, you're missing OTAs, and then you come in and get signed, and then you got to get, back into football shape and things like that, and how that can mess up not only whatever you got going on from last year going into the next year, because, we seen it happen with Emmett. We seen it happen with some other players that held out and how it slowed up their progress during the season. With no drama, I can't keep saying it enough, man. This has been probably the first time going into the season where you don't have no drama, you have so much positivity. And like you said, as Cowboy fans, we've been fooled before. We really fooled before. There's no, cut and trying to make that seem like it wasn't that way, because Jerry, have been doing some good things from last year going into this year. But I just kind of, I just want to keep saying, Shotty talked about how everything was already pretty much foregone as far as like what they wanted to do. They just needed some things to kind of happen, and it did. And he was so happy about it. He took 30 minutes to talk about that and where they at and going into training camp now and getting ready for the preseason that, he just want to keep that for the players. And he said he talked to them so much about, we got something that we building on. Let's take that and then come back and then continue to build on it. I just think for the first time, man, we got a coach that was able to allow to be put in a situation where he could create a culture and could have people that, of course, that first year, was what it was. But I think on the offensive side and as a coach, remember the years with Mike McCarthy, we would have time management issues, we would have coaching issues, being able to change the game plan from the first half to the second half. We had those things going on, and I just feel like he talked about doing things a little different, learning from other successful organizations and being tapped in with other people where they're talking to him, they're talking to Jerry, they're talking to Steven. Will McClay, I talked to him on another platform and talked to him about the same thing, and he laughed and he told me, he said, hey, you must be a longtime Cowboy because everything you're talking about is the same process that we're talking about behind closed doors. So, again, I just want to keep saying to people that I never talk about the Cowboy. If you're a Cowboy fan, and I know you is, you can't talk about them. You just got to let them do what they do and let them do what they do on the field. And I've been committed with that ever since that loss that you talked about with Tony Romo, where I felt the league kind of sabotages that year and didn't want to see us get it. But that was what it was. We done had some other losses. The Sunday night with Wade Phillips. I can go. I talked about with when we played San Fran, when both of us had about the same identical record, but because they had been beating us in postseason, that's supposed to be the time where we were supposed to see where we at, and we got blowed out by I think it was close to 4 points. And we had Micah Parson go on his podcast and said he thought we were the better team on the field and that the game was closer than what it was. I just feel like Shotty kind of looked at last year and decided that some players that didn't want to be there, he didn't want them there anymore. And then it made it easy for Jerry to kind of do what he did because Micah kind of made it easy for him to do that. But it took a lot of balls to do that because it could have fell flat. And I just keep pointing to certain things like Jerry said that if he couldn't Kenny Clark in that deal, he wouldn't even made the trade. Going back and getting a player like Quinny Williams, who we tried to get earlier in the draft and couldn't do it because of, where Jets' organization was. I'm excited. Again, I'm tempered like you, but again, I feel like I think training camp will be, like you said, we'll see certain things and then you continue to build on that. But you cover them all year. As someone that's been covering them, are there things that you wish maybe would have been a little different in the way we kind of the O'Diggy trade? Having to go get a competent and well-respected player in safety that we got Thompson from Arizona. Even some of the undrafted free agents that we went after that, I was, just looking at podcasts and stream after stream talking about the Cowboys hit on some players that some people were looking at to try to get to. So they've always drafted good. I've never had any issues with the way they draft. Some, you can't draft and hit on every draft pick, but Cowboys, for the most part, they got a good track record in that. Now you got the culture. Is it anything that you feel like they could have done better, or is there anything that you felt like, took a little long to get there?
I think that, there will inevitably be a point in October or November where we look back and say, oh man, you should have addressed this. And you could certainly argue that, they should have addressed linebacker in a deeper way, right? You could argue that, maybe they should have found a way. Maybe they should have traded for Jordan Brooks. Maybe D Winters wasn't enough. Maybe they should have found a way to just convince Nakobe Dean to pick them over the Raiders. That's the one that jumps out right now. And some of that, again, it's hard to see until you kind of see the team exposed in certain ways. But all that being said, I mean, I genuinely, and I have, you mentioned, I have never had a problem. I've been covering this team professionally for about a decade now. I've never had a problem levying criticism, sharing my thoughts, what I think should be better. And that's not to say that I think I have all the answers, but it's just some things are so obviously wrong with the way they've handled them. I don't have any of that to say this offseason. And again, that's not to say like everything's perfect, they're going to win the Super Bowl, whatever, but they have acted like adults. And that's truly what I have cared about the most for a while. Now we can argue about how that sets the bar very low fine. But right now they've got to clear that bar before we can set some more bars that they have to clear. They had to clear getting away from the kids' table and stop, stopping with all the toxicity, stopping all the contract drama, having all of these non-football things dominate their kind of lives on a day-to-day basis. I mean, and so right now they have none of that. Right now it's purely, totally, 100%, absolutely, unequivocally about the football. Okay, you cleared the bar, man. Like let's see what that looks like, and then we talk about what the new bar is, what the new one is that you have to clear. Maybe next year we do expect a little bit more, XYZ here, there, wherever. But I genuinely, my heart is full. I think that and I don't know who to give all that credit to. Truly, I don't know if it's Christian Parker coming in with his thoughts and his approach to things. I don't know if it's Brian Schottenheimer absorbing more control, his culture taking root, as you've noted. I don't know if it's Jerry and Steven finally having, feeling like they had enough fun, playing their little silly games. Or maybe it's just coincidence. Maybe it truly is. There's nothing to give the credit to. It's just how they chose to act this year, and next year they'll go back to their wicked ways. But right now, at this moment, as it relates to this coming season, I'm good. I've had enough. I have no more room for seconds in my belly, and I'm just kind of ready to see how it all actually looks relative to the season.
Who do you want to see step up this year, and who do you think is someone we're not talking about that can make an impact on both sides of the ball that you want to see? I've heard another person say that we need to get away from a player that they feel like is gimmicky. That was like one of the worst I ever heard, and I was talking about Thibodeau. Not Thibodeau, but Kayvon Turpin. Said that he's a gadget player and we should get rid of the gadget. But every time I turn around, see him on offense when he's getting used the right way, like he was in Shotty's offense, his numbers was up on offense, maybe not so much on special teams because they wasn't kicking the ball to him enough. But he still made the Pro Bowl. Every time you turn around, when he get the chance, he's running right past people and making plays. And I just keep going back to certain things like that joystick move he did playing against the Redskins where he fumbled the ball and made just a crazy play. I mean, that's not somebody that I would say you put on the shelf like the defensive coordinator did last year with Marcel Leafa. I feel like he showed some flash. Yeah, at times, he got some penalties for late hits and things like that. But I'd rather show that type of energy on the field than just totally put him on the shelf and stunt his growth as a player early on. Is there anybody that you look at that may have didn't get that chance that they got previous years? I'm talking about some of the younger players there. And maybe a player that didn't grow up last year finally grew up this year because there's competition and things, that's going on with the Cowboys as far as the coaching staff is concerned. You don't have this person that's guaranteed, hey, you're going to be a starter. Hey, it's all about the competition and what you do in the classroom and on the field.
If I have to pick one right now, sometimes these things are about opportunity, right? Like there may be more talented players at other positions, but those position rooms are just deeper, and so it's harder for them to get onto the field. And so if I kind of look in the middle of the Venn diagram of a position where someone down the roster has a chance to succeed and someone who has some talent and someone who's also new to the team, because the reality with someone like, I think the world of Savon Ravel, and I hope he develops and blossoms and blooms into a proper player. But, he was not someone that Christian Parker, was a part of the drafting process for, right? So right. When it comes time to things like there's Christian Parker's guys and there's other guys, and that's not to say that Christian Parker can't love him as well. I mean, I think you get my point. That being said, I already mentioned that I'm concerned about the cornerback room. Savon Ravel is a reason for that. Is he going to be fully healthy? Is he going to be fully ready? Is he going to live up to who we thought he was when the Cowboys spent that 3rd round pick on him? Is Deron Bland going to be fully healthy? Is he going to ever return to form? And so I think Devin Moore is you look at that middle of the Venn diagram, like I said, he's a 4th round pick, someone who they obviously liked early on before they didn't have those 5th round picks anymore. He's a Christian Parker guy. He was drafted in the Christian Parker era. He plays at a position where there's all these, chances for him to get onto the field. I could see that. I mean, I would not be shocked just because of the way football works if after Thanksgiving, he has to start a game, something like that, because of injuries and opportunities, things like that, the way football goes. So Devin Moore is definitely the name that jumps out to me, but that's part of what training camp does, is it helps us identify who those players are going to be.
Hey, RJ, I'm going to tell you how tapped in I am with you. Talk about Devin Moore a little bit, because he's from your automata too. So I know you like him because he's a Gator too, but I know you don't speak about people just because you have a liking or preference about them. You speak about them because what you see on the field, and just, you can talk about those things. I've heard things that Christian Parker talk highly of him at OTAs and things like that, and just scheme wise, how he talked about the same room that you're concerned about, the same room he talked about. Like, he said that he presented a plan out to Jerry about some players that he was happy to talk to and get in contact, and couldn't wait to get on the field with them. Siobhan Revel was one of them. He talked about having a healthy blend that can get back to 2 years ago and some of them years where he was healthy and making plays out there. I just think that when you talk about Christian, he always talk about how he keeps a mental foul, and a foul on. He said he has a foul on every single offensive player and defensive player in the league. And he came in and talking about how he already had a foul, talked about them from high school to college to the pros. I feel like when you get somebody that has that type of, can speak to that type of way he look at skill sets and things like that, I feel like the whole defense is a chess piece for him. Even Quinny Williams talked about how the room, as far as them looking at film and stuff like that and being able to be quizzed on things, is refreshing for him, because he said he had to go back to those Alabama days and things like that, as far as being in the league. And he finally on a team that he feel like, his whole career, he said he been on teams that wasn't winning. Not saying that the talent wasn't there on defense and things like that, but they wasn't winning. He said he felt real good about just, last year being coached up, being consistently testing. He said even all the veterans are being coached and tested and things like that. Talk about Devin for me, though, because I feel like, one, I knew he was a good corner, and for us to get him, I think in the fourth round like we did, we took those picks that we had got and double back when we let Miami kind of get in there to do what they need to do, and then have Philly, who we don't do no business with, and always for years was antagonists, jumping in front of us, taking players that they didn't even need. I just feel like, talk about him, man. I feel like you on to something with talking about him. And then there was another player that they was talking about. Don't forget about the other first round draft pick, because Christian said he's making strides too in OTAs as well. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So Devin finished his career at Florida in a tumultuous time when Billy Napier's Billy Napier was let go. And so didn't really ever find proper footing from a team perspective, but has a lot of talent, certainly. And obviously coming out of an SEC program, I think that just kind of lends to, a certain level of belief. And again, for me, as much as I'm a fan of his, I think it really is just about the opportunity. That's really what this boils down to. It's not a matter of anybody could do this, obviously, but it's a matter of that position is so shy. And again, I think we have this natural belief in the secondary. Certainly players like Caleb Downs speak for themselves, but because of Christian Parker, it's kind of like, Dan Quinn made so many players so much better because of who he was from a pass rushing standpoint. You have that Dan Quinn sort of boost. And so I think we're, when you consider this as a corner who Christian Parker signed off on, the first corner that Christian Parker signed off on, besides obviously what they did in free agency and outside of Caleb Downs, but the first corner that Christian Parker signed off on, someone who he clearly believes he can groom and develop and turn into something legitimate. And the fact that, again, what's in front of him on the depth chart is, shaky right now. And maybe it isn't shaky. Maybe Savon Ravel, finds stable ground. Maybe Jerron Bland returns to form. Maybe none of this is ever possible. And I would love that to be the case. I don't think anybody disagrees there. So it's just doing that math, I think, is how this ultimately kind of works out. And that's why I think he's someone to keep your eye on.
Okay. Again, I just, like I said, I want the room at every position to be full of competition. I believe that corner room, I believe, is going to be filled with competition because one, you got Deron wanting to, finally get kind of off the last 2 years where I just felt like he wasn't healthy at all last year. I felt like the Cowboys rushed him back. I felt like they rushed Overshown back because the defense was so bad and they wanted to get some of their star players back on the field because you know how it is when you're paying certain players money. You want to try to get them back on the field. Now, I do like that Shotty did kind of step in a little bit and said that he didn't want Siobhan and he did want some of the other younger players like Overshown. Because you remember last year, once the season kind of got where it was, they decided to put those folks, didn't even suit them up because they wanted to just kind of allow them to heal a little more because they just wasn't their self. And so to hear the coaching staff say that, hey, we learned from that and we'll take things a little different, even the way that Shadi talked about, they're glad to just have Pickens there. They didn't really want him to do anything. They didn't want him to hurt himself, being out and things like that. I just feel like it's a lot of things that the Cowboys did during other seasons that this year they have a plan, and it's just seems like they executing it from the front office down to the coaching staff. You don't have the front office getting in the way of what the coaching staff is trying to do. You got players buying in. You got old players coming back. I listened to Tyron Smith talk about how, he just showed up and continued to kept showing up and was working with the offense. How do you feel? How you feeling about Tyler Guyton coming in? How you feeling about Tyler? What's the other? And I don't know how I'm forgetting his name because I was talking about him all last year. The rookie that we picked up in the draft last year that was manhandling people, like he said he was going to come in and do. I just feel Booker. I feel so good about the. I'm a little shaky with just having and I'm losing it with the names or whatever. Our right tackle, who I feel like we should just have either a younger player there that can move a little better because I feel like he kind of was getting beat a lot last year. But he held up coming back, on the back end of the season. But I don't worry about the offensive line. I'm not worried about the defensive line. I just want to see year 2 or see what Rashawn Gary, I feel like is such a good pickup because I know what he did on the other side of the ball when we were playing against them with Mike on the field and everything. I just feel good about a lot of things, but I want to see if I can get you to kind of talk about some things that you feel like in hypothesis or hoping, but some things that you could say, I'm good for this for Cowboys fan, and maybe kind of give someone who haven't been watching the Cowboys OTAs, haven't been watching the draft, don't know about the team at all. What should a fan that have not been invested as far as, because again, like you said, fans probably at this point where they haven't even been tapped in because they just been hurt and don't even invest their feelings into the Cowboys. What would you tell someone that has loved the Cowboys for so long but been burned? Is there anything you could say to them to give them something that they can hang their hat on and hopefully maybe look at the team a little different?
I think that football is unique. The NFL is unique. You're clearly a sports fan, and we all have different teams we root for, across other major sports, and maybe someone is a Knicks fan, and so they're levitating right now. Obviously, the World Cup's going on. That's its own thing. But the NFL is so unique in how our lives sort of operate around it, how it's kind of married with what we do. Because it is weekly, because it for the most part is the same day every week. Obviously, you got your Monday night games, Thursday night games, things like that. But like every week, your sort of energy is headed that direction. It's a matter, you're talking to your buddies, you're in the group text, you're we're all going to John's house, everyone's coming over to my house, you're talking to your wife, we got to make sure we take the ribs out so they thaw in time because you're smoking them out or whatever the case may be. Like we got to go get son, daughter a new jersey. I need my new shirt. It's so-and-so's birthday. They're a big fan, whatever. Like it is such a part of our society in that time of year. Not everyone, obviously, but it's the biggest sport in this country. And so it's something we can all be pointed at. And it also happens to exist at a really just amazing time of year. It's the fall, the clocks turn back, it's Halloween, right? Like there's always a game on, even if it's not the Cowboys game, but it's the Thursday night game, or it's Saturday night and Alabama is, at Tiger Stadium playing the Tigers, right? Like there's always some tangential way that it is connected to whatever you have going on. Thanksgiving, Christmas, like these things speak for themselves. And so it's difficult to you can be as mad as you want to be at this team. And I've been there, and I imagine a lot of people have. As mad as you are, you simply cannot disconnect that. You can't, because it's a part of the fabric of your life. And so I think that right now that feels good again. Right now I'm excited again. Right now you're never going to catch me complaining about my job. Like I'm so ridiculously blessed, like I said, but sometimes this job for me is, okay, the game is on, open the laptop, let's get going. Sometimes it's, okay, my wife, my son, my parents, let's make let's make a brisket, right? Like sometimes all that's happening around my work because of how fun it all is and whatnot. And this year feels like more of the latter. This year feels like it's not just the job anymore. Again, I'm talking about my own view here. And I think that that's how a lot of people feel. I think everyone is sort of willing to let their heart be open. And I think the response to that is always, well, it's been 30 years. Okay, so what, man? Like, I guess what? If it's 31, you know how to deal with it, right? Like if they don't win the Super Bowl this year, like what's going to happen? Your friends are going to make fun of you for being a Cowboys fan. You've been there. You've done that. Like, what's going to happen? Stephen A. Smith is going to say something silly. You've lived through that. Like you're the stove cannot burn your hand anymore. I promise you. Like no matter how embarrassing you think this can be, you already have those scars. So you might as well just enjoy the ride, enjoy the process, because it is so tied to your life. Like I think that was what I was so bummed about these last 2 years, is it suppressed the way I was able to enjoy those things, because football is so synonymous with our life throughout the NFL and college football season. And so now, to me, I feel liberated. I feel free. I'm willing to just have fun again. And maybe I should have worked on that myself the last 2 years and not let the team affect me so much. But my word of advice, my point of advice would be just have fun with it. Like, because they are finally in a position where it is okay and safe to have fun. That does not mean that they're going to win the Super Bowl. They probably won't. History says they won't. 31 of the 32 teams will not. But they are in a position where they might be able to, and that's part of the fun of it all.
Hey, just listening to you talk remind me of something. Did you feel? Because again, you've been covering the team for so long. What was the 2 years before last year? What was the 2 years like covering them? Because as someone that's an avid fan, and I've been doing the podcast stuff for years, but the last 3 years really the sports thing as far as podcasts is concerned. And like I said, it's a lot of times where Sunday would come around, and after the game go off, I didn't feel good about anything else that was planned or anything that day, because the Cowboys is, when they lose, they ruin my whole week. And a lot of times the way they lose hurt the most. Like before, they would lose games that if you couldn't even script the game on how you lose, they would lose that way. Last year seemed like, and you talked about this too, like that Philly game, I felt like, yeah, they shouldn't have won that game. But if it was like any other year before, like previous years, we would have definitely lost that game, and it wouldn't even have been closer. But yet we came back and won that game. Yeah, it was a down year for the Kansas City Chiefs. And in that game, we played better than them on every level of the game, and the game really wasn't as close as the score was. The first game, I felt like those drops and things like that the CD had, we supposed to sweep the Eagles, but it didn't happen. I mean, like you said, so many games are decided that are very close are decided by missed opportunities in a game where you have close games, and the Cowboys, they did a little better job at winning games that they shouldn't have won last year, or close games. But then you had games like the Carolina game that had me like totally scratching my head. Like I didn't even expect that one. And then you had the game where the offense struggled so bad. You just trying to wonder why they can't figure out how to score into the third quarter. It's like things like that. And granted, every game Cowboys had to put up 30 points just to be in the game. So last year I wasn't really upset as I would be previous years. But the 2 years before that, and you keep talking about the toxic. Was it that toxic covering them as being in the media? Because I feel like there's some media people that are toxic anyway. They like the mess. They like to talk about all the negative with the Cowboys. They never talk about the positive stuff like that. I didn't hear that much of some of the people in the media even talking about how Shoddy was able to do what he did on offense and kind of seemed like it was his team going into this year. I feel like this is definitely his team. Why is that not talked about as much? Why is all the drama seem like that's what some of the media wants to do with the Cowboys? Because I know the Cowboys are who they is. You're going to talk about them whether they're winning or losing, whether it's good or bad. Sometimes other platforms need to talk about the Cowboys to fill up the time slot and get people, watching the shows and stuff like that. But it hasn't been that way last year and this year. So how was it covering them those 2 years, man? Because I feel like Dan Quinn, I felt like the expiration date was on him because he was our coordinator in a lot of those blowout losses too. So I didn't feel like having him there necessarily meant we was going to go to the Super Bowl on defense either.
Yeah, and I have to say I have to go after this. I thank you for your time, but I would say those 2 years, they went to the playoffs 3 years in a row. You mentioned two, but they went, Dak got hurt in 2020, but they went in 21. That was the first time they lost to the Niners. They went in 22. They lost in San Francisco that time. And then in 23, obviously the Packers game. And they had not been to the playoffs 3 years in a row since the mid-90s. They had not won a road playoff game since the 92 NFC Championship game. They beat Tom Brady's Buccaneers. And so I think that it was great in that they were having success, but it also was capped because they weren't getting it done. They still weren't getting the NFC Championship game. And I've long said that 23 season when they lost to the Packers, again, they had lost to the Niners the 2 years before. I think everyone kind of, it felt like fans, myself included, were like, okay, you're going to beat the Packers in the wild card round and you're going to get to the NFC Championship game and you're going to lose to the 49ers because that's what had happened the years before. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you and that's sad. Don't get me wrong. That's the bar being low, but everyone was okay because you're going to get to the NFC Championship game and then that monkey will get off your back. That won't be a thing anymore. And this was also before Detroit had gotten to the title game and before Washington had gotten to the title game. So that was before Dallas literally had the longest drought now. And so it wasn't bliss. It wasn't perfect, but it was fun because they were successful. And I stand by the fact that I don't think Mike McCarthy gets enough credit for how successful, for accomplishing those things, for going to the playoffs 3 years in a row, for winning a road playoff game. Everybody loves to poke holes in those sorts of things because he's the guy who's gone now. That's not to say he was perfect, but again, the last 2 years, Mike's last year and Brian's first year, were uniquely toxic relative to the Cowboys. And that's why it's so nice to see that they're finally over.
All right, RJ, I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule. You got anything that you want folks to know about? Any events you got, blogging the boards, any latest column or anything like that you want to talk about on the way out? I really appreciate you taking time out your schedule. It was refreshing to talk to you as well, and I hope we could do this later on down the line, maybe mid-season or whenever you get a break in your schedule.
Of course. No, I appreciate that. I would love to. You have my info. Bloggingtheboys.com is how you can read my work and the work of our talented staff. And I'm RJ Ochoa on most social platforms. And I like talking about the Dallas Cowboys. That's what I want to do all the time.
That's what's up, man. Appreciate you, man. Love to have the opportunity to talk to you, man. Appreciate you. You have a blessed day, man. And look forward to talking to you later on down the line, man. Appreciate you coming on the platform, man. You was a plus today.
Likewise. Have a great day.
Thank you, man. All right, that was RJ Ochoa. I appreciate him. He actually was on a little longer than what I expected. Again, I want to thank you so much, RJ, for joining today, sharing incredible insight. Always a pleasure, man, to have you on the show. where our listeners can find you and your work. You establish all of that. Make sure you follow him. His column, Blogging the Boys. He's on SB Nation, and sometimes you can listen to him streaming. If you got the app Bleacher, you can hear him sometimes with short takes and things like that, where he'll talk about things that's important not only to him, but the Dallas Cowboys as a whole. Appreciate him again coming on, man. This was a great show today. I really appreciate everything. Hey, again, this is for the Elite Nation out there who are Cowboy fans for this platform. That is the Star Treatment. I appreciate you joining us today. We're going to podcast form. You can follow us on all of the social networks at The Star Treat DC. Again, that's at The Star Treat DC. Help us grow by liking, sharing, interacting with us everywhere, all right? And just jump in anytime with live streaming. You can jump right in the live chat on whatever platform you're on. We stream to Twitter X. We're also streaming to Instagram. We'll be streaming soon to YouTube and Facebook as well. But we need your interaction. Anything and everything is always elite about the Dallas Cowboy and more. When you're following, when you're listening, when you're sharing, when you're liking, when you're subscribing to everything that is the Star Treatment. I'm your host, Scott Al, signing off, man. Y'all take it easy. Appreciate my man RJ for coming on and sharing some knowledge, man. Y'all take it easy. As always, God bless. And we're going to take you out, man, with what we do here, man. This has been a great show today. And again, just very appreciative of my man RJ coming through. Y'all take it easy.
Welcome to the Star Treatment, the Elite Dallas Cowboys podcast. I am your host, God's Child. Follow us everywhere at the Star Treat DC.
See the digits in the glass, legacy on the knuckles, we don't worry about the past. 5 stars on the chest, glitched in the design. DC to the world, yeah, we crossing every line. God's child on the mic, yeah, we crossing every line. God's child on the mic, turning coal into ice. God's child on the mic, turning coal into ice. Giving Cowboys Nation a whole new slice of life. No cap in the booth, just the truth and the facts. No cap in the booth, just the truth and the facts. Elite takes on the table, no holding anything back. Get that real Star Treatment, May 20th if we lock in. 12 p.m. on the clock, the winning streak begins. Stay hip, stay connected, join the broadcast on the link. We the elite of the nation, faster than you can blink. The Star Treat DC, yeah, that's the handle, that's the crew. Bringing 5 rings of proof and a vision that's brand new. Navy blue and the gold, yeah, that's the color of the blood. From the turf to the booth, we rising up out the mud. Iced out pendant swinging, shining like the sun. May 29th at 12, yeah, the work has just begun. Exclusive coverage, top tier minds in the room. Clearing out the competition, hear the rumble and the boom. Elite Dallas Cowboys, yeah, the name says it all. When you dealing with the stars, you never gonna fall. Get that real Star Treatment, May 20th if we lock in. 12 p.m. on the clock, the winning streak begins. Stay hip, stay connected, join the broadcast on the link. We the elite of the nation, faster than you can blink. The Star Treat DC, yeah, that's the handle, that's the crew. Bringing 5 rings of proof and a vision that's brand new. 5 rings, 1 show, the elite. You heard the stats, you know the history. Now witness the future. Set your reminders, we waiting on you. Get that real Star Treatment, May 20th if we lock in. 12 p.m. on the clock, the winning streak begins. Stay hip, stay connected, join the broadcast on the link. We the elite of the nation, faster than you can blink. The Star Treat DC, yeah, that's the handle, that's the crew. Bringing 5 rings of proof and a vision that's brand new. Hey, the Star Treat DC, we out. May 29th, don't be late.
808 thump. Hey, Elite Nation. If you ain't following yet, what we doing? It's the Star Treatment, where Big D's new era get the royal welcome. Hit that follow button at the Star Treat DC. THE Star Treat DC. Again, that's at the Star Treat DC. Drop a star in the comments, slide in the DMs. Tell a friend to tell a friend we moving as a team. Godchild signing on. Stay royal. Elite Nation. Brass hit. You locked in with the Star Treatment. Follow movement at the Star Treat DC. Again. That's at the Star Treat DC. Stay royal. Elite Nation. Brass hit. Brass hit. Brass hit. Brass hit. Brass hit. That's a wrap on another episode. Lead Nation, the Star Treatment, the only Cowboys podcast to talk to you, not at you. From Shotty Standard to CP's defense, from Dak and the A1s to dogs in the trenches. We covered it all, we broke it all down. Big D's new era, the royal welcome in town. But the show don't stop when the mic go off. We keep the movement alive across every platform. Follow us at the Star Treat DC, THE Star Treat DC. Again, that's at the Star Treat DC. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok,